Awesome. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Nepio's SIG Automation meeting for November 15th. I will pull up the agenda. We have a few items on the agenda. Okay. Okay. I think Liam added this first one, looking at today.
Yeah. I just think that maybe the controller questions from the maybe should be taken first, because I mean these are more routine, I guess. So if you want to change the order, feel free, John.
Sure. I mean, there were only a couple. I only had the last two items are mine. Vish, I don't know if you want to start then.
Okay. Yeah. Let me share my screen. 1 second.
Oh, okay. I have to stop sharing.
So, John, I'm assuming we are going to talk about the status after the presentations.
Yeah, I think that's what. Yeah, I think that's kind of what Liam's point was too.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we should figure out where we are with our two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. We need to talk about that. Yeah. Thank you.
Let me know when you guys are able to see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So basically, I know I'd mentioned about Mockery and Testify, and since last week, I was trying to figure out how I would be able to bring the team to share this info. So after I saw Liam actually had one of his patches merged last week with unit test, that gave me a good example to be able to use, Liam. So I was able to leverage yours to be able to bring up people to speak on Testify and Mockery, because it's a very hard one. Even I don't consider myself to be an expert on Mockery and Testify, but I've used it in the past and I found it to be useful. So the best way I thought to have a discussion and to get people up to speed was actually have a PR, which I don't want to be merged. So I put it on hold here and have a discussion there and help us all come up to speed. So what I've been able to do is, what I've provided as part of this PR is provided some references to Mockery and Testify, where you can actually you can look up some of those information. And then again, like I said, we can have the discussion as part of the PR. And I have actually provided which files have changed. Basically, for example, one of the things is, just like if you're familiar with things like lint, if you have used GoLinter or something where you have your own, or some other, so you can have a config file, basically. Like, in this case, it's something called mockery.yaml file, where you can actually specify which files or which packages and which interfaces you want to be able to mock. And in this particular, case, I am actually trying to demonstrate that we want to mock the Gitty client interface, which is located in this package directory, and I want the mock to be generated in the same directory as where the Gitty client interface is located. So it's as simple as this. And there are, of course, additional configuration options. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this, but to demonstrate what we need to do or what we need to use or what I've used in the past, this seems like a huge change which they had as a feature in the recent past. And it was very easy to generate this by running a container, actually. The Mockery as a container, vector Mockery, and I was able to just generate that using that thing. And like I said, what I've tried to do. And also, it generates this mock gitty client.go. If you look at this is a huge file. But the good thing is, I have never looked at the contents of this file in the past, right? I don't need to. It's a black box. I treat it as a black box. And you can actually treat as a black box and rely on it to be able to call the to create the mock object and use it in your unit testing. So in this particular
So
case,
So what does it do? The mock object, like, does it records the
that's-
calls that got hit? Like, how do we use it in the tests? I guess if we were to use a
yes,
mock.
I'm coming there. That was the next
Okay,
thing.
okay.
Yeah. So of course there are some mod related changes that needs to be made, which I'm still trying to figure out. It is failing. But in this case, where I tried to do the reconciler test.go, I leveraged what Liam had written. I was trying to replicate them and try to use it. I have not written it for every single test. I was hoping that I demonstrate for 2 of those test cases, which is here, So Liam has a test case for user info reports error and repo exists and CR fields blank. I think it's familiar to him. So basically the idea is that all these additional things, even I think Liam's is simpler in this particular case, basically, but these are all generated by using the mockery, and which means it can work for any case. So in this particular, sorry, one second, my headset fell off from here. So what I have tried to do here is, of course, I use the Golang IDE editor, and it creates some stuff for me when I try to generate test cases. So that's the cool part. So it creates a name. If it is not a global function, exported method. Since it's not an exported method, it tries to do it in a certain way. But that is nothing related to mockery. So what this helps you when writing test cases is, after that mock file gets created, there are methods and the name of the interface method, and which takes some arguments and which returns some values. You can specify what you need, what somebody writing a test needs to do is, you just need to specify what those types are. For example, in this case, user info reports error, one of the things that we want for the mock helper here is, the get my user info is what I want to be able to mock to return some predefined values. So 1, I specify the name of that. 2, I specify the list of parameters, the type of parameters it takes. In this case, get my user info doesn't take any parameter at all, so it's empty. And then the return arguments, it returns like 3 values, which I can't remember the top of my head. I think it's the user, I think it's the HTTP response, and whether there is any error or not. In this particular case, I want to be able to return error. So I am able to specify that here. I'm saying that for these 2, return nil, but return me an error. So, and to activate this particular thing, I create a mock object, because this mock object is already created. So I create a mock Git client, right? And I go through the different, in the upsert function, if you had noticed, there are like 6 different or 4 or 5 different interface methods that are getting called. So I actually, once I create this mock object, I go through this mock structure and set them up, in the sense that is, Testify provides this on method. It says on method, when this is called, what are the arguments provided and what are the return values you want. So you're just like actually setting those values, basically. This call object, which takes arguments and return list, you're specifying that. And when it gets invoked, and when the actual upsert repo function gets invoked, this will return those values, basically, to mimic the failure or positive condition that you want. So that's the key. And I'm hoping that our discussions can be as part of this PR, and also some of the links are provided that you can use to understand this framework and help evaluate, hey, is this something that we can be useful? Because I found this useful. That is what I wanted to share. It was the agenda for what I wanted to share.
Okay, thank you, Vish. Fiacre, you have a hand?
No, if you want to go first, John, and I know you had a question earlier on, so.
No. I mean, I think he answered I think we should discuss this on the PR. Like, this looks interesting. But yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, no, it definitely clarifies some of I'm glad that the actual mock object can be treated as a black box, because when I saw it, I didn't quite. Yeah, it's obviously auto-generated. My question is, the does this add unnecessary complexity? I don't know, but also just on the, if you were to add a new, so on another PR that I'm kind of half working on, I'm working on the token reconciler, which also uses the Git client. But within the token reconciler, it uses additional uh, function calls on the Git client. So in that sense, would you have to add those to the interface? So the wrapper, so essentially our Git client is a wrapper of the
Yes. That is
HTTP.
how. Yeah.
So if you added a function to that wrapper, would you have to regenerate the mock and
Yeah.
go? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, actually, I need to make the makefile for that. So basically, the next steps that we are going to do is so that you can regenerate the mock every time you add an interface method. You can just generate. So those are all missing at this point of time, and it's easy to do as well. So that's what I did on the OVN Kubernetes as well. We have a makefile that goes off and generates it for you if you know you've added a method. And for that particular method, if you wanted to really test it out, if you wanted to unit test it out. Yeah. It can be treated as black box. So the way I wanted this PR to evolve, basically, for example, if you're looking at some of these things where I'm generating the mock client and where I'm going through some counters and doing all this, organically, if some of you guys try it out, right? And this can all be moved into its own library, basically. At this point of time, it's just like 8 lines of code. And this can probably, there are other features if we need to add, this can go into a separate file. And what folks probably will need to do is just before you call your test method here, and you want to be able to go off and use mocks, all you will be calling is process mock objects. And then you can go about doing your unit testing normally. That means you can always treat that as a black box.
Right.
And what I'm hoping for anybody like Fiakra, you or Liam to do is, I've only got 2 methods at this point of time here, right? 2 of the 6 test cases that was written by Liam. And if each of you are able to take one and add to this PR and, enhance this PR and try it out and see how easy or complex it is, that will be a good test of, what is it that one really needs to worry about? What is the overhead, if there's any, because I could be biased at this point of time because I've done it in the past, but it took me like a good 3 weeks before I understood this framework, back then, before I started using it.
That's a kind of slight concern. Like my lots of feedback somewhere, but it does. My
I can't hear properly. It's a background noise.
Right, done. Thanks. But yeah, my only concern is like, so on my first venture into Go mocking, I've kind of got my head around it now. In obviously setting up the mocks manually can be laborious and but I'm wondering, does this library, it's for a newcomer, for someone that knows the mocking framework probably could look at this and say, yeah, that makes complete sense. But for a newcomer to look at the code, so I'm just thinking, devil's advocate, someone comes in, looks at the code, brand new, and then goes and looks at the tests that back it up. Is it easy to understand? Yeah, I'm just wondering, and maybe I'm slightly going a bit off topic as well, but
that's a great question, actually. That's a great question.
In terms of the actual interface, maybe this is a separate topic, but the actual Git client itself probably needs some refactoring, because from just me trying to mock and kind of test stuff around that, it looks like a bit of an anti-pattern in the way that I just posted the thread there. Blog.
Correct.
But actually, yeah, sorry, I'll hand it over.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I was sorry if I was interrupting you. So I was trying to agree with you on some of these things. And that is why if you or somebody else is able to pick this up, write those test cases just to see, it will be more like hands-on workshop for people, like, as part of the PR, and also be able to do it like asynchronously here on the PR and ask all those questions. And as I was going through that, when I was looking at the reconciler.go file, while writing this test, I was already finding that, hey, why do we actually have some of these things? For example, when I was looking at the recycler.go, this is where it is, right? I mean, unit test helps us to help refactor. That is where my thing is. For example, we never use this context object when we're doing this absurd, okay? I was like, why are we even doing that? Or even like I was thinking that, we are passing this as a receiver, method receiver here, this struct. And also we have Git client here. So things like this actually will pop up when you're actually, coding, and things like that will come up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, I know I had my hand up, but I just wanted to agree with both of you as well on this. I don't mind volunteering to have a look at the framework over the next few days, Vish, and see how it compares with the
Yes.
the test. But I think the other there's only one other class that this client is using, which is token reconciler, and I think once it's actually the token reconciler is converted across as well to just use the interface rather than Gishi clients directly, we can refactor the Gishi client then without impacting the cloud. Yeah, sorry, I'm using Java terminology. Without impacting the modules that use it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and then we can. Then I was. Then I suppose the bigger question is probably not an R2 question. Is how do we we need to be able to support other types of anyway, yeah, no, thanks Fish for this. It's very
No,
very good.
I'll have a go.
Yeah.
Victor.
Yeah. Well, Bish, thanks a lot for bringing this topic. Probably my question. I know that that there is a lot of mocking frameworks. So basically, my question is why this in particular, like in terms of probably license or
yeah, this one basically back in 2021 when I was looking into it, I was looking at Mockery and GoMox, and I had done some analysis. I need to pull up that particular material. Let me share that. I think I had that, where they actually made a comparison between GoMox and Mockery. These were the two. I think we used. I don't have that information right away, but let me try and share it when I get that. I think I have it filed away somewhere. I'll put it up.
Okay. So let's continue the discussion on the PR. I think
yes.
I think it's an interesting experiment. Let's try it out. I think others have said this, and I will echo that. Like, concerned about it being complex, and I mean part of that complexity might be coming in because our code needs to be refactored, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But rather than introducing the complexity in the mocking, we should refactor the code, and maybe this pushes us to do that. I don't know, but let's continue the discussion there. Thank you. I guess I'll just quickly. I just had a couple of items to note, really more that. So I've been talking to the TEP team, and I think it makes sense. It's the best. It's in our best interest for Porch actually to become part of Nefio, rather than continuing as part of the kept project. And so I'm working with them to do that because they're it's not the direction they're going. So I think that we can pull it directly into Nefio. I wanted to raise that here and get any thoughts or comments. Yeah. So if anybody has any comments on that, happy to hear them. Yeah, Liam.
Yeah, sorry, that makes sense to me because actually even things like if we wanted to change the way that say that packages are handled or YAML files or allow other things, we would have had to do that in the Porch project, and if it's in Nefio, it's easier. Yeah.
Exactly, and actually, I think that one of my goals here is actually to, as we do that, we'll take the parts of kept that the CLI parts that manage porch, it will put them in a separate CLI. And so kept becomes completely optional at that point. And Wim and I were, he's probably shared it with some other folks, I think too. He shared with me last week some work he's been doing that I think will do a better job than what we've been able to do with kept on some of the stuff that he wants to build in. So what I want to do is make sure that we continue the same principles and that we build any changes we make are done in a migration path that works for everybody. But in this sort of evolution, the porch pieces would come to Nefio. Kept would still be a CLI tool that we can use, but we don't need to use for the things we're doing. So I think that might also reduce our dependency on that particular tool. Yeah, Bala.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, just trying to understand what it means. So right now I understand Porch is a project under CNCF, is it right? Is kept?
Yeah, so there's we have to figure out. So kept is in the process of moving to being under CNCF, but that's not quite finished yet. I don't know. I need to work with the LF to see how this would work. But at this point, the plan is, or the discussion is around taking the porch pieces, which are a sort of subset of what's in kept, and moving it to Nefio instead of to CNCF. But there's some logistical complexity there that we're going to have to figure out. But the idea is that porch makes the most, we're the biggest consumers of it. I have a bunch of things I want to do to change, and it would be better if it were under our control to do that.
So would it be so? Yeah, that is one logistical thing. So how to move on. The second thing is, would that still be considered? Would that still have its own life cycle, and Nefio treating that as a dependency, or do you think it's going to be part of core Nefio?
I think we should just make it part of the core Nefio. I think that would be simpler rather than having its own life cycle.
But isn't Porch?
That's the thing. It's usable outside of there, but there are very few people using it, and so like the biggest user is us and the Google internal project that's related to Nefio. So I think that the kept team wants to focus on the client side experience, not the server side experience. So I think that it just makes more sense for us to adopt it and make it part of what we're doing, and then we can evolve independently.
Okay. Cool. So you're suggesting the use case is mainly revolving around Nefio, so probably it makes sense to make it a part of core Nefio.
Yeah, I think that as we've talked about, like from a Nefio point of view, like we shouldn't really be limited to telco, but at this phase, for at least for that team, it doesn't make sense to focus on like only the telco customers have the level of complexity today that needs this experience. And so I'm hoping that as we build it out, and I know there's others in the community who want to build out with enterprise cases in mind too, but and so down the road that may become useful for others. But I think right now we should focus on our use cases and making sure that we make it work as well as we can for us.
Cool. Thanks, John.
And I don't think it being in the other project isn't really helping us, and it's not really helping them either. So that's what it comes down to.
Okay. So the other thing is, obviously, I mean, it can be part of core Nefio, but when we, I mean, obviously from the software component perspective, if it can be component by itself, then if at all there's an evolution needed for that to evolve separately, then that can be done.
Yeah, and we'll have to figure out whether we put it in a separate repo.
Same repo is fine. Yeah, same repo could be fine, but what I mean to say, purely from a software, we can treat it as a separate component. It can be separate.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it'll be a separate build. It'll be a separate image that gets built. Right now, there's two images there's the server image. Well, there's more than two, but primarily there's the server image and the controller image, and those would continue to be two separate images that get built.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Cool.
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 Awesome.
Thanks. Thanks. Sean.
Oh, and then the only other point I had is I wanted to just call this out. I was talking to folks at KubeCon last week, and I was saying how we wanted better guidance around controller design. And David Eads, who's one of the chairs of or TLs of API Machinery, pointed me to this document that he wrote like 8 years ago that I didn't know about.
Okay.
It's pretty high level, and I think we've covered most of these things, but I think it could still be quite useful for folks. We tend to focus on using KubeBuilder and controller runtime, which this does not assume, this document. And I think that's what I would call the gentle on-ramp for controller developers. But I will say that the folks like David, who have done this for a long time for a living, prefer to write it without the framework. But I don't think that's realistic necessarily for the whole world. So I know Stevens, and team are working on the SDK, and I think basing it on KubeBuilder is probably the right approach for the operator part of that SDK. But just, I don't know, just to let people know of the other opinions out there, or if you really want to get into controller development, there may be more flexibility, like anything, if you avoid a framework and go directly to the lower level. But I think this still, all of this guidance applies whether, yeah, I can do that. All of this guidance applies. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing my screen anymore, am I?
No.
Sorry, I was pointing to things, and this document, all of this applies to everything we're doing, whether you're using KubeBuilder or not. It's more about it's a little bit higher level than that. Okay. Liam, you want to provide this feedback?
Yeah.
We'll go
just
to
I just wanted to just it occurred to me when we were talking there. The session only finished maybe an hour ago here. I mean,
okay.
really what was done was the Arna guys went through the Nefio demo and then talked about some of the things that's coming in R3, and then ISTI did a very good presentation around Kept and Porch, and also the motivation for Nefio from a data-driven point of view. And then Eric DeBow and Timo did a presentation. The presentation you did at KubeCon. They credited you, said it was your presentation, but they were just presenting it. But the feedback was mainly, it was kind of front-loading people at there. The feedback was mainly, there was the usual questions about Helm, which I'm not going to go into. There was really no new ground there. But there was maybe 7 or 8 people from China there, and they had 2 points. One which we probably can't do anything about, which it'll have to go to GSC, which is that it's really hard for them to participate. They really want to participate, especially it was Ling Li Deng from China Mobile, but it's just the meetings are a killer for them. The other point was they have an issue with getting with pulling things from companies in, let's say, in the Western world, especially Google. You're blocked in China, so our sandbox doesn't work for them. So I said it's probably more of a question for maybe SIG 3. But maybe there's ways or workarounds that we can cache them somewhere in the, if there's images and they don't, I don't know what they're trying to use the Google Cloud install, but I said that they could use the VM install, but I think there could still be images that could big sync and things that maybe we need to put in some sort of neutral zone. But I think maybe it'd be good to try and help them.
That's a great.
Maybe.
So they can pull from Docker Hub, right?
I think so, yeah.
We might want to push all our images to our Docker Hub or something like that.
Yeah, and it's probably really hard for us to test that because we probably always have a, Google is ubiquitous everywhere except in China. So maybe if we, what I suggested to Keguang Fang, who said, well, we tried it and we had to give up. But look jump on the Slack channel, start with the VM install and see how far you can go with it. And if you get into trouble, then give us a shout and we'll see. We'll see how we can help you. Okay. I think it'd be really good to get them involved. They're very interested in it. Okay,
that's great. Thank you. Appreciate that. And I'll just say one thing about the Helm. I know Stephen and the SDK team have been working on that, and I think that if we do what I was talking about earlier, once we bring Porch in on board to Nephew and we disentangle the Porch commands from the kept CLI, we'll be less dependent on kept. It might make it easier also. Like that's been a kind of a stumbling block, I think, since day one, is people don't necessarily want to rely on having to use a specific CLI tool for client-side work and whatever. So I think we can, if we could reduce that dependency and people can use Git directly. There's other ideas I have about, like, right now things are in a quote kept file, but really all we need is we can, like, what Wim's working on kind of replaces the whole pipeline aspect in a much better way, honestly. And then the only other pieces in there are like the package, the package discovery, like this is a package and what its upstream is. And we could do that independently of a quote kept file. So I think we have I haven't written all this down, but we have kind of the path forward, and that will make it'll give us a little bit less of a less friction, I think, with the rest of the world.
Yeah, it was just like we were just introduced it to a new community and said, look, this all sounds good, but what about my help? The usual.
Yeah, exactly.
But and it didn't really cover any new ground for there was nothing we hadn't discussed before. Anyway, I just thought it'd be especially it hadn't occurred to me that the install mightn't work. So look, I think it's something we can solve, and we should try and make an effort there. Anyway, that was all I wanted to say on that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, then let's jump into R2. Do you want to run this part, Bala? Or you want me to pull up? I have.
Yeah. Anything is fine, John. Probably I can send you the link if you're sharing already.
What's that?
Yeah, if you're sharing already, probably I can send you the link. Or
these are all the open PRs, but
at this point of time, I think I just picked up. I don't think we need to go from the word perspective. The main thing is
actually John isn't even presenting anymore, so you can go ahead and present. I think
I'm not. I thought did I do something?
You are not. No.
I don't know what I did. Okay. Yeah, go ahead then, Bala.
Yeah, I was gonna present the board anyway, so let's see. Where is that?
I think I accidentally left the Zoom call briefly or something.
Okay, can you see the board? Yeah. So I mean, it's the one concern I have is I mean, we have made some progress in terms of okay, in terms of few release related depths. I think they'll be completed. At this point of time, the main works that is pending is obviously the OAI related work, and it depends on those two PRs. I'm not sure whether anything changed today, but last time Joseph, I'm not sure if Joseph is on the call. Joseph or Sagar. Sagar is here. Good. Probably I will let them speak as well. So the one thing is last week's automation meeting, John, obviously you were at KubeCon. Joseph expressed that if the dependencies are not resolved within a week, then they cannot get the rest of the controllers in place for OAI, both RAN and core in accordance with the changes for that CRD. Obviously, that will also change free 5GC as well. So at this point of time, the two PRs that are stuck I think they were looking for some guidance from Wim. I'm not sure whether Sagar and Joseph are able to get together with Wim at all. I put a note. I know Wim is also busy traveling this week.
In flight, I think right now. Yeah.
Exactly. Right now he's in a flight. So that's the state of things, John. I think what I'm trying to say is, long story short, those 56 and 57 are the two fundamental PRs on which most of the work depends on at this point of time, Thanksgiving coming, etc. We may be at risk even to meet the December 15th deadline.
Okay.
If we do not, if we do not get the those fundamental things resolved by this week. So Sagar,
are there still open questions, or is it more just a matter of?
I think Sagar, based on Sagar ability to speak, I think they addressed the review comments, but there was some fundamental changes that Wim was talking about. So Sagar, please, you can talk more intelligently on this than me. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, Bala. So John, so all the things that you asked me, like all the small detailing which you told me, I made those changes. Okay, that's perfectly fine. That's different. But what Wim wanted, that Wim fundamentally changed the whole PR. Actually, that was not even what it was not even like what you were trying to do, let's say. So the PR was fundamentally changed in a way that what we were proposing was according to the issue, that there was a CRD for AMF and a common CRD for core and RAN. But then we wanted to have something like more smaller CRs, and then a config CR in which the smaller CRs will be there, like a meta CR. So, but then the problem is, what we are more confused is, me and Joseph, is more like that if we are creating a concept of meta CR, like which has something known as a config ref, and that meta CR has other smaller CRs, then what the other config ref which is already there, we are using it for. So there was some sort of confusion. There was not 100% clarity. So the thing, and I also made the changes what also Wim asked me to do it. So the whole PR is according to what he had in his mind. But the thing is, what he has in his mind, I just don't have the real clarity, because I have a feeling that we are doing something which is only for R2, and then the moment we jump on R3, it's gonna be scrapped off. So if it's like this, and R3 is just in January, so I don't know if it really makes sense to even also do it, So that's the whole thing.
I mean, so iterative, part of the process is iterative development, right? It's like it's trying something, see if it works. Nobody's rolling this out tomorrow, right? So we're trying to learn. Part of this is learning as we go along about the right way to do it. Part of the reason we're doing a second vendor of network functions is so that we can see if the patterns that we established in R1 are or we can evolve them, and we're going to evolve them further in R3. So I mean, if it's completely different, then that's maybe not ideal. I don't know that we can really. I can't speak for Wim, and so I think without him here, it's really hard to have a conversation about it. We might have to. We don't have a meeting on the books tomorrow, but maybe we can during the 9 a.m. time. And actually, I have another call at that time. But maybe we can try to have maybe even if I can't be there, if Wim and you could meet at some time that's more convenient for all of you. We probably should try to get this resolved ASAP, because like Bala said, we don't want to end up in the situation where we're going to have to delay if we can't get it resolved in the next day or two, is what it sounds like.
What is the alternative for Saga? So we follow what you have on a PL, that would be good enough as a transition.
So 2 points, Stephen. I think during the last not last week's, before that meeting, Wim proposed something. I think I'm not sure whether it's the same thing that Sagar you're talking about, but Wim proposed something, and he said it's gonna require a lot of changes, and I actually convinced him not to do it for this release.
Right.
Because if that requires a lot of changes, then that would create a lot of changes, not only for OAI, but also for 3.5GC as well. I'm not sure if we are talking the same thing, you and me. But at that point of time, Wim was convinced, okay, let's not do it for this one. We will take it for the next one. So I have somehow hunched that we are talking about the same thing. With that said, I just wanted to ask the same thing that Stephen asked at this point of time. I think the existing PR is in line with our original refactoring of APIs. So if we go with that, and then introduce any new changes as a part of evolution, like John said, do you and Joseph think we are on track to have the rest of the things completed by the end of this month?
Yeah, Joseph, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think I mean the API PR, right? The PR 56 and 57. Initially, I think when we started off, I think we didn't have an idea of doing it. So this started in between. So even if we don't do 56 and 57, I think we can still do it. The only drawback would be validation. We will not do, but I think we can still create the config package with RAN and core parameters. I mean, we can define the same kind of structures, but it won't be part of the API repository. I think we just create packages with those configurations and then use it in our code. And when I think we finalize the approach, I think then we can contribute it to the API repository. I think that's, I mean, if the decision
Okay,
is
so
not-
what you're saying is that there are alternatives. There's really two alternatives. There's well, there's three alternatives maybe. One is proceed without these PRs at all, and essentially do all of this configuration as vendor-specific configuration for OAI, and just move on, and we can deliver that. Second option is effectively take these PRs as they are, although Joseph, I see that the conventions hasn't been updated for conventions yet, the 56. So we do need to do that. So take these PRs more or less as they are, and that one, we think if we make that decision in the next, and Bala, I agree with you that I think that we did decide that we would not go to the bigger picture yet.
Yes.
Then these would merge in the next day or two. And we think what I'm hearing is we think we can still make the date with that. Third option is the bigger picture thing, and we don't think we can make that. And Sagar is raising the question of, well, if we're going to do that anyway, is there a point in doing the middle one? I would argue that yes, there's a point in doing the middle one, but without knowing the details, that might be not accurate. But I think that, like, in R1, I implemented package variant, and I knew within 2 or 3 weeks of having implemented it back in like May timeframe, I knew it was wrong. But if I had been like, well, I'm not gonna, I guess I had already implemented it. But if I was like, well, some progress is better than no progress, right? You have to show, because it's not just about the code, it's about the communication to the rest of the world and showing progress. Now, the first option of going through with vendor specific ones is also showing progress to the rest of the world. So like so that's where it gets a little bit subtle of like, is this a step in the right direction, or is it just a step off to the side? If it's just a step off to the side, then yeah, probably it's not ideal, but it's maybe not worth doing. But if it's a step in the right direction, it's usually worth doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think one clarification, I think in PR 57, I think there is a new config kind that is created, which is having a list of raw configs, which is an extension of an existing config that we already have with the one that we're using for config ref. Right. So I was thinking, why are we not extending it, the existing config ref? Maybe it might break existing deployments. So maybe a step forward would be not to include that new config kind, but kind of reuse what we have already, but use the other kinds which is specific to NF. I think whatever is there in API repository, I think if everybody agrees, I think we can just go ahead with that also. Yeah, that's another topic.
Okay. Yeah. We have to ask Wim about that. I'm not familiar with quite that level of detail for that particular item. So yeah. But so, do you, he said he'd catch up later. So maybe if you guys can see about, if there's a time, I don't know. I can never remember where everybody's time zone is. So I don't know where, Joseph and Sagar are.
I think one is in India, one is in Europe. So John, can you please schedule tomorrow's meeting, like you suggested, and then we can try to see.
I will schedule it. I won't be able to be there because they fell off the top. Like they were supposed to. They ended at the end of October, I think, and so my time slot filled up. But others can be there. But since if it's Sagar and Joseph and Wim, maybe easier for them to find a time that not having to include U.S. time zone people. So that I think they should have the flexibility to do that. But I can still book the meeting if you want. For anybody that wants to attend.
It's okay. That's fine. Then if that can be done, then we can communicate asynchronously over Slack. So
when do we want to finalize this by?
I think
sure.
By tomorrow, I would say.
Okay. So if we don't, then the conclusion is to Joseph and Sagar, if we can't finalize this decision tomorrow, then probably you just proceed with your vendor specific ones and we just get it out the door. And
that also de-risks the free 5GC breakage.
Yes,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, I think any change would affect a lot of things now. So.
But Joseph, when you get a chance, can you look at the issue in number 56 of following the API conventions?
Yeah, because I didn't update it because I think the same changes are being done in the 57. So
and it looks good. I just glanced through 57 and those, I mean, I didn't do a line by line review, but I glanced through them and it looked like it looked pretty good. So I can do a more thorough review a little later. Awesome. Okay. Do we have any other
on that note, I actually, Joseph Sagar, I created this issue. Last time Joseph brought it to the notice that, once we have everything ready, we need to have a setup to do end-to-end testing with OA, RAN, and core. So I created this issue. At this point of time, I randomly assigned it to Victor, Rado, and Vish. So what I did was I took your architecture diagram here, Sagar and Joseph, into this issue. It's 439. So you please make sure this is correct. This is exactly what we want to create for this test infrastructure end to end. And if you can comment on that in this issue, and then Victor, if you are on the call, I'd like to hear from you as well. To what do we need to do to realize this particular topology for end-to-end testing perspective? At this point of time, I'm assuming we are going to have two different test cases. We are not going to install them together. We're going to have one for free 5GC, one for OER.
Yeah.
So that we don't need the mix and match.
Okay, I haven't taken a look, but definitely I will jump later and see what we need.
And the other thing is, please, anybody in the call, if you want to help, please jump in on this one as well. This is also a very critical thing to do for us from the end-to-end testing perspective, creating the infrastructure. So yeah, first request is to Joseph and Sagar, please take a look at the topology. I actually took your diagram and just pasted it here. Just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. That's one thing. And anybody else wants to help Victor, Rado, or Vish on this, please. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, Bala, I'm gonna take care of. I'll take care of this with Victor. You know, I know what changes which are needed because
Okay.
we made this diagram, so I know where changes are needed and which files. So it's okay.
Awesome.
I can take care of it, and I will try to do something which can also accommodate FreeFireGC because I know there is a possibility that the same networking can work with the other one also. So I'll try to see. Okay. So
Cool. Thanks. So you're gonna work with
yeah.
Victor on that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, sir.
Yeah. Well.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, those were the two main topics for me.
Okay.
John.
I'll just mention a couple things. One is the GCP stuff. I merged yesterday. It all merged the packages in the catalog and then the instructions, and I went through them all. And I have one more PR to fix some bugs I found as I went through it. But I'm wondering about whether we can set up. I wouldn't want it to be part of a CI, but if we can set up like a weekly periodic job or something that, because it's kind of expensive, but that kind of provisions a whole, GCP environment. We could use our existing Nefio since it's already GCP and have it spin up and use our machinery to create a bunch of GKE clusters or something and then tear it all down. So I guess that's more of a SIG3 thing I should raise there, but similarly, Red Hat has an OpenShift opinionated install.
Yep.
So we should have the discussion maybe in SIG3 about what we want to do about the opinionated installations and what kind of testing E2E environments we want to set up for those, if at all.
I do. Yeah, I feel like this is probably something we need to involve Rado to talk about.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So,
Okay, cool.
So just to understand, John, you're suggesting that we do this end-to-end testing with real clusters instead of kind clusters. Setting it.
Well, I think like end-to-end, like testing our functionality can be done with kind clusters, but
yeah,
I want to also test, like part of what I demonstrate is one, I'm not using CAPI at all. I'm using a completely different mechanism for cluster provisioning.
Got it.
I don't use the boots like it's just demonstrating a different installation where it's creating real clusters using different mechanisms. And it's more just, I want a periodic that's going to say, we didn't break this kind of functionality, but it's not likely to break, right? And it should be a rare thing because of the cost and time and all that.
Yes, I understand that. So basically, I agree to all of the things that you said. Is essentially we are making sure it works in GCP, and then it makes sure that it's working on real clusters. I think both are a great value addition to the project in my view. I think we can make it a periodic job once we set it up. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Cool. I think probably we can again discuss this when Rado is here in the SIG release.
Okay, we do that on Monday maybe. Yeah. Okay. All right. So then I think that I'm looking over the board. Most of the other things are like are spikes on POCs on things. So it's really those two PRs and the fallout from those, getting the OAI pieces running.
Yeah.
That's really the heart of what we need to get done now. So
and
let's.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I spoken.
I was done. Yeah. Fine.
Okay, cool. I was gonna say, Ashish, I got your message. I know Ashish has opened a PR for the SDK tool stuff. Ashish, at this point of time, obviously, I think the community is gonna review that. Thanks for putting the PR, but please expect some delays because of the other things that are high priority.
Okay. Thank you all, and have a great week.
Sorry, one more thing, John.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think the last time when we met, I mean, obviously not in the last call, I think we were thinking about how do we design the support for multiple repo types, GitHub, GitLab, I mean, or somebody using a Bitbucket, private Git, things like that. We were discussing between a provider model versus using them in a single process. So probably we should revisit that in our next call.
Yeah, I'll say like, so my demonstration doesn't use the existing repo controller, and now that you know, we don't have the reliance on Git, thank you. I don't even run Git. So
Yeah.
the point I'm making is these, even regardless of that discussion, they're not mutually exclusive. Like, I can use this other mechanism for provisioning repositories that has nothing to do with using our particular repository provisioning controller. So yeah, just that's my point. But Liam's got his hand. Yeah.
Yeah, I was chatting to Istu today, and he said he had some thoughts on that as well. So I just was saying we should include him in.
Okay. Maybe is there a GitHub discussion on that? Maybe we should create one and try to.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. And also because maybe it might make some of the code kind of refactoring and improvements and redundant. And you know, if that's the case, then.
I was thinking about that, like if we had a better interface here, this mocking might be easier. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. But anyway, but for us, it's still a learning experience, so I don't think it's time wasted. But yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
awesome.
yeah. Regarding mocking, I had one other point. I don't want to take time here. That will deviate into some other discussion, maybe some other time. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you all. We'll see you later.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye bye. Yeah.